Welcome to the Filmcast review of Talk to Me. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from IMDb. Quote, when a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill, unleashing terrifying supernatural forces. End quote. This is one of the highest rated films of the year. I think it has around like a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. They've already announced a sequel directed by the same folks. It has 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Philippou brothers are making the sequel as well, and it is doing well at the box office, so it's earned that sequel for sure. So at the same time as all that's true, you know, Jeff Kanata, I think between the three of us, you're the one on this podcast that probably is the least drawn to horror films, right?
That's correct.
Devindra and I are both big fans. You were gracious enough to accommodate our desire to talk about this movie on the podcast this week.
That's not that I don't like horror films. I like horror films when they're good. I am just not drawn to them. I wouldn't rush out and see this in theaters if it weren't for the podcast.
So given that you did rush out to see it in time for today's recording, I am really curious, what did you think of Talk to Me?
I guess you could say what I thought of Talk to Me is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Oh, let's hear it.
A spooky limerick.
Well, we'll see. Ain't confident filmmaking grand? Clear rules that I understand. Invite this film in, it gets under your skin. I suspect you'll want to give it a hand.
Nice.
Give it a hand like applause, not
I guess,
help it out, right?
Yes.
Applause.
Applause.
I thought this movie was phenomenal. Phenomenal. It is such confident filmmaking, as I said. It is smart. It is savvy. It's got some great performances. It shows a remarkable amount of restraint and allowing the viewer to kind of do a lot of the work. So much of what makes this movie creepy and off-putting and disturbing is not what you see on screen, but what you imagine. And I think that's pretty amazing, pretty powerful, especially for young filmmakers. They rely on a lot of just performance. There are some, cool effects too that happen, but oftentimes we'll just stay on an actor's face and see their reaction to a thing and let that trigger the fright, which is a very, I think, bold thing to do, especially when you're working with young actors. And I think there's some very, very, very good performances in this movie. I can't wait to get to spoilers because I think it does some really cool things toward the end as well. But ultimately, the hook of this movie is so deftly conveyed. It is really a metaphor for peer pressure and, drug use or doing that thing at the party that you shouldn't do, but everybody's having a good time and we're all doing it, so let's just do it. And like all great horror movies, it's kind of, using a supernatural element to say something real about a thing that we have all experienced, right? And I think this movie is really finds its niche really smartly in that regard. And it's kind of a relatable experience. And you find yourself in this place of like, oh, don't do it, but I know you're going to do it. And it raises the tension beautifully. It is novel and unique, and it's not something I've seen a million times. And it goes places that I think are pretty clever. I thought this movie does so much with not very much, and I found so many scenes to be so shot so cool. There's it manipulates the camera in really cool ways when stuff is happening, and shows things or doesn't show things, holds things back, focuses on the actors, let the actors acting really carry it. I just had a blast with this movie. I thought it was great. I have no complaints. Except one. I have one big complaint.
That we'll talk about in spoilers is my guess, right?
No, I'm not going to talk about it in spoilers. I'm talking about it right now.
Okay.
And that is, I hate the sound design in this movie. I don't know if it grated on you. I don't know if it was my particular theater.
I didn't notice anything, huh?
It seems to me, and perhaps this was my theater, but I don't think so. It seems to me that every sound effect in this movie is amped up, is jacked up to make you feel off balance. I understand why the filmmakers would want to do this, to make you feel uncomfortable and off balance and a little insecure. But literally every door slam, not even slam, every door closing, a pillow being hit on a person's head playfully, everything sounded like a gunshot in my theater. It was a brace, a clap, any something hitting a table, any sound effect. I felt like in the mix was cranked up and jarring and meant to be percussive and off-putting and just kind of get under your skin. And I feel like it's such a cheap way to achieve that sensation. And it really bothered me. It was constant, like everything. Maybe you guys didn't experience it, but I felt like the movie was strong enough. It didn't need to rely on cheap tricks like that.
Yeah.
And so I disliked that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience as well.
Maybe it was my theater.
I'm sorry that you had that experience, Jeff.
Was it at a particular kind of screen, or was it a normal
Maybe you shouldn't have chose the D-box screening, Jeff.
Oh no, I went to the shove it up your colon theater chain. No, I went to a theater I've seen many movies at.
Weird.
The AMC right near my house.
Yeah.
It was in the digital projection with good sound. It was like a nice, reclining seats. It was nice theater. I've seen a bunch of things in, and it wasn't like the rest of the movie was like that. It was literally just the sound effects. The sound, like everything felt juiced. Everything felt amped. Like just somebody walking into the house and closing their door was like, and I was like, geez, it's just meant to, it was like nails on a chalkboard to me, but everything else about the movie I enjoyed.
Devindra Hardawar, your thoughts on Talk to Me?
Yeah, I love this movie. I've heard the buzz about it, and I think the concept is just something kind of fun, like basically teenagers discovering the ability to talk to the dead. I think that's kind of fascinating. There's a bit of flatliners in here. There's a bit of like other concepts we've seen before, and honestly, this goes along similar lines of like flatliners. But I thought this was a really great story about also about grief, and also about how we connect to each other as well. Like there is a strong emotional core to this movie, which I think is great for any type of film, but especially horror. I felt for this character. I felt for Mia. I think the actress Sophia Wilde is phenomenal, or Sophie Wilde. She's phenomenal in this, portraying somebody who's going through a major loss and finds something that can maybe help her reconnect with her mother. And just like the road she goes down, I think is pretty wild. I also love a horror movie that is just like, it exists like from the beginning. It's just dread. It's just, things are bad, and there's kind of no escape from it, and these characters are just doing their best to deal with that. This is a movie that doesn't cheap out. Especially, we'll talk about the ending and everything. I think it goes places I think are really interesting. The restraint it shows, like you're talking about, Jeff, I think is really cool, because one thing we could say outside of spoilers is like we never see what other characters are seeing, like when they're holding the hand, when they are supposedly seeing spirits. We never see what other people are seeing outside of Mia. We only see her vision. So there's a lot of cool stuff, and that really locks us into her as a character too. I thought the dynamic she has with her friends just felt so natural and realistic. They all just felt like teenagers. It felt like teenagers or college kids. And it just felt so relatable. There's a sequence where they just like go ham on this thing, and I thought that was just like so wild that they are just like leaning so far into this, and it's shot so well. It's definitely confident, like you're saying, Jeff. I love this movie, and I'm so glad that they just like were like, yes, a sequel, please, because I also think it leaves us in a place where I kind of want to see what else they have to do in this world. Yeah.
The other thing I'll say real quick is that it also made me reflect on the fact that, man, it must suck being a teenager these days, because literally every dumb thing you do is recorded forever.
Yep.
Like it's ubiquitous to have, the very, very first scene of this movie is, people just filming the crazy thing that's going on. And I know that there's lots of things in my past, as a teenager, that I'm very glad were not recorded, because and I like the movie kind of acknowledges like that's the reality for teenagers right now, is that whatever you're doing, whatever dumb, stupid peer pressure moment you have,
Yeah.
somebody's going to be recording it.
I completely agree with you guys. I love to Talk to Me. I think this is filmmaking of the highest order. Every component of this movie comes together in such a great way. The actors, mostly a group of certainly actors that are largely unknown in the United States. I think they do a phenomenal job. Really, the only person I recognize from this movie is Miranda Otto.
Yeah.
But who is fine, but she's
Playing a very tired mom. I totally understand her.
She's like a minor role in the movie.
Yeah.
She does a great job, but it's really about Sophie Wilde and all the other people in the cast. They all do great. The filmmaking choices are really phenomenal. I have seen a lot of stuff in my time watching horror movies.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few movies where the sense of dread is so palpable. Like I did the thing where I'm like not focusing on the screen or I'm covering my eyes because I was so scared at various points of what was happening in this movie. And that's only because these filmmakers know how to create tension. And I was also a big fan of the world building, slowly how the rules of this thing are explained to you, how it functions. I think a lot of movies struggle to get that balance correct of like, oh, we're just going to tell you all the rules up front, or we're going to give you all the details way at the end,
or there's no rules at all, unfortunately, sometimes.
Right. And it just doesn't feel quite right. Like the way in which you're getting information, and the screenplay, which was written by Danny Philippou and Bill Hinsman, does a great job of, I think, parceling out the information. So you always feel like you're learning something new. You always feel like you're in this process of discovery along with the characters. So I had a great time with this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. And I think what's so great about this movie is it's one of those movies where you sit down with no expectations, right? Even if you've seen the trailer or not, like I don't know who these filmmakers are. Like they were big on YouTube, but I was not familiar with their work prior to now.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with most of these actors. This is not based on existing IP as far as I'm aware. So it's just like you sit down for this experience that's like completely fresh, and it completely knocks you back because of how amazing it is. So I love the movie. Yeah.
The origins of this, I think, are just really interesting because it was based on a short film by Daley Pearson, who was a producer and writer on Bluey. So just the chart to get to this movie is just such a wild ride.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
All right, folks. Shall we talk about a few spoilers for Talk to Me?
Sure.
Let's do it. Here we go. Spoilers for Talk to Me starting right now. There's a few filmmaking decisions I want to highlight in the spoiler section. First of all, opening scene, great sequence. I think it's all done in one long continuous shot, if I recall correctly. And that really does help in this case. It gives you a feel like, hey, you're trying to follow this character as he's trying to find, I think, his brother, if I recall correctly, right? Yep. And you're following him in real time. There's like a party going on. It's very disorienting. Then he breaks down the door, which I thought was a really nice touch, because whenever I don't know if you guys do this, but whenever I watch an opening sequence, I'm always thinking to myself, what are the things they have to reset if they mess this up?
Yeah.
and he breaks down the door, and it's like, oh, I hope they got that right the first time, because if not, this would have been a huge pain in the butt. And then of course he gets stabbed. Like he gets stabbed, and that whole sequence I thought was just really well done. A great intro, a shocking intro, and then it's, I think, at least an hour or like 45 minutes until we come back to it to explain what's going on.
Yeah, it's such a great cold open. I hear the directors also have shot like a little bit of stuff around that character too. So like there is some prequel stuff that we may see at some point.
Yeah. So love that. Devindra, you described the section where the characters are going ham. That was the moment in the movie.
Yeah, it's like, this is
where
brilliant.
I was like, this is incredible. Where basically there's a scene where it shows all the characters doing the thing where they connect to the hand in rapid succession, and it's shot like basically like a music video.
I think the cool thing is that the unexpected, unintuitive thing is that the idea of connecting with the dead is euphoric. They get a charge out of it. It's like doing a drug. It's like they're sitting around doing whippets or lines of coke or something.
Flatliners. Yeah.
This notion that it is. I love that first moment when Mia does it. We see the absolute horror of what she experiences. We stay on her face, and she goes, that was amazing. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
That was amazing? That seemed like the worst thing that could happen. You know, she almost stays in longer than 90 seconds. You know, she gets on the brink of, and yet she loved it.
I think she does stay in longer than 90 seconds the first time, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Yes, but the idea that she comes out of that thinking that was awesome. I can't wait to do that again. Yeah. And then you know, which feeds into the sequence later that you guys are talking about of everybody wants to get a shot at it. Everybody wants to try it. So we're all sitting around doing shots. We're all sitting around doing something we shouldn't be doing. But it's amazing. We're all having fun. Like I've never seen that kind of thing expressed that exact way in a movie before. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well put, Jeff. I think for me, I got like two ideas from what you described. One is maybe the sensation of it is really interesting, but the other is that maybe there's something liberating about someone controlling your body, like you not needing to make decisions about, and someone just like controlling you, and
which
like,
is kind of what Mia was saying. Yeah,
that's kind of the feeling I got. Is like how many of us have experienced decision paralysis, you know, all the time in modern life, where we're just like, I don't know what to do. And the idea of, oh, hey, you don't need to decide. Guess what? Don't need to decide. A dead person who died in a horrifying way gets to decide for you.
Is using your body like a puppet.
Is using your body like a puppet. It's like, oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
At last I can rest. You
know, some people talk about like when they go flying, they feel like they don't have control, right? It makes them anxious. Weirdly, I just feel like chill. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not in control of this plane. I can't do anything about this. So we got delays or whatever. So okay, I guess we're doing that. I do like that the cap off to that scene is the younger kid. It's Riley doing it and just getting absolutely messed up. I think that is such a shot chaser. Yeah,
I couldn't watch that. I was
the part
so
where he
upsetting.
pulls on his own eyeball.
Yeah. Oh, that was just so upsetting.
It really does a good job of like setting up the euphoria and then consequences really, really well.
So good.
Yeah, and it's such effective use of special effects too, in the sense of like they don't have the budget for like massive creatures and big blue beam in sky, whatever. But the idea of like a creature possessing you and causing you to self-harm is so horrifying that, you know.
It's so cool how the very first time she says, Mia, is the first time we see anybody do it. Mia does it. She sits in the chair. She says, talk to me. I love that it is instantaneous.
Yeah.
Every time it's instantaneous. They immediately see it.
Yeah.
And we see that like grotesque, kind of bloated, you look like a drowning victim, kind of like just horrific for just a split second. And then they never need to show us that happen again. Like all we ever need to see from that point on is the next kid in the chair saying, talk to me, and then seeing it. And we do all the work, and it's so rad. Like I think a lesser filmmaker would feel the need to show us the ghoul, the ghost, the demon that they're seeing each time. And yet I love the fact that they just rely on the kids changing their demeanor. You know, it was awesome.
I also love that it's just a simple cut to the monster, to the ghosts, basically, to the spirits. Nothing special. It's just cut to it, and even you as an audience are like taken aback. Reminds me of the great scary sequence at the beginning of The Ring too, where we see the girl in the closet. Like it's almost like a movie built around, you know, getting that and kind of coasting with that feeling for a while. So smart. Like I think somebody also clearly aware of like horror movies and things that have been done before. There's a lot of Sixth Sense in here as well in terms of like talking to the spirits, but it still feels fresh. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, and there's so many great sort of references to, you know, the way kids behave and doing nasty stuff, like tying them to the chair clearly kind of evokes tying off if you're going to inject yourself with something, you know, or I love that sequence where he's not breathing and gagging, and the one girl's like, wait, just wait for it. Just like it's you as the audience member is like, this is horrible. Things are going bad. Everybody in the room is like, things are going bad. And the one girl's like, nah, that's the drug experience. You're going to love it. You just got to get through the puking. You know, it's like, it's really effective, I think.
Yeah. I think there is also this idea that when you're that young, when you're in high school or college, you feel invincible. Like you feel
Yes.
like you
Yep.
can't, nothing can stop you. Cannot die.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I think this movie features characters who are teenagers as opposed to like people in their 40s, because
Right.
people will be like, you would not F with that if you're
Exactly.
in your 40s, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And
You would know enough, yeah.
The kid who's like, I want to do it to prove that I'm
Yeah.
grown up.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's also wanted to shout out Zoe Tarakis, who is like the sort of like ringleader of the whole situation, like pushing everybody on how cool this is. They are fantastic, and they're going to be in the Ironheart series soon too. So like that is so glad to see. So glad to see like so much talent here, and this person's already like ready to do something huge after this.
Yeah.
There's an awesome shot where we follow Mia after the horrible thing happens with the kid. We follow Mia, and she's in the foreground like freaking out. And the two of them, the two ringleaders, are in the background, soft focus, can't really see them, but we overhear them like, okay, what are we going to do? We got to get our story straight. We got to make sure the cops don't. It's just such an awesome shot, I thought.
Yeah.
Things get too real.
That was because it's all out of focus and
yes.
Yeah, it, amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Zoe was a great presence in the film. And yeah. Let's talk about the final sequence, which I have to say I was mildly confused by. I'm going to tell you guys. So first of all, as you guys pointed out, Jeff, you pointed out the theme of peer pressure, and I think that's very present here. Like, you got to try out the thing that everyone's trying. But the theme that resonated with me more was honestly the idea about grief.
Yeah,
where
sure.
The idea basically is like Mia cannot let go of what she thinks is her mom, the idea of her mom that she's seen on the other side, right? And that inability to let go drives Mia do terrible things, right? And to make bad decisions, I think is ultimately where the film lands on that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Mia is trying to take Riley in a wheelchair to the highway because she has convinced herself that Riley is trapped in the netherworld.
Well, the spirits have convinced her.
The spirits have come for her. But yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick before that, the gobsmacking moment to me that I thought just made the movie transcend into a whole other place of genius was the moment where she sees the little girl, and the little girl's like, well, I could take you there. And she goes, okay. And the little girl says, I let you in. So you immediately, as the audience member, go, oh, it's a two-way street. Yeah. You can go into them, which was like blow my mind. And I'm really hoping the sequel kind of, because now we're in spoilers. Now we know Mia is dead. The sequel can literally be her taking over living people.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like I loved that moment where all of a sudden she's brought in. So that's what, how it's revealed that he's in this like endless
but I feel
torture.
Like a lesser movie in many other horror movies, like she would survive, like she would do the thing to save the kid and love your uncle at the end, whereas now like she's dead. Did she kill her father? I forget if like we see
she
stabs her. I think he's okay
he recover
at the end.
Yeah, so everything we saw at the end is her like in the afterlife, basically.
Yeah,
so we
moment
see a bunch
she
of things.
Steps out into traffic, I think the rest of the movie is the afterlife.
Yeah.
Right. Her, or at least her. I mean, she also is looking at things that happen on Earth during that time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
She sees the family
like her as a wandering spirit.
She's a wandering spirit at that point.
Yeah.
And she does see her father. So like,
I
think that's your interpretation. Like your interpretation is her father survives.
Yeah. When she stabbed him, I was like, oh, this movie is just like going.
Well, she like stabs him in the throat. My interpretation was that he was dead, but
that's dead.
Well, but
we
see Jade
we see him in
find
the
him.
hospital. Yeah.
We see Jade find him alive.
Okay, yeah,
right.
True.
Jade walks in and he's there,
by then.
and he's holding the thing. And so I feel like if the movie wanted to make sure we knew he was dead, she would have found him dead.
That's fair. That's fair. And then presumably our interpretation of the end is that when she sees her father in the hospital, that's like her actual father on the real world, and he just doesn't see her because she's a ghost.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So Mia is walking Riley to the highway. And it's a great tense sequence because you're like, one of my bummers around these kind of horror films is the idea that like when the person like Miranda Otto, what she does in that situation is like if there was no supernatural things going on, Miranda Otto's actions are very reasonable.
Yes,
where,
absolutely.
Where she's like, "Oh yeah, I overreacted.
Yeah.
You're actually trying to just find your own family within us, and that's fine. But in fact, Mia is the danger. She is the danger, and so she walks Riley down to the highway, and they try to convince her to push Riley into the highway. Then we kind of cut to this amazing shot from like a bystander car that like needs to swerve out of the way and then crashes. And
That shot's amazing. Yeah.
I think the interpretation is that Mia throws herself into the road in place of Riley.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's kind of what happened. But
she makes the right decision.
Yeah, she makes the correct decision. For a moment, I thought that what's her name, Jade, might have pushed her because Jade is like running behind her.
Right.
But anyway, and then you see Jade with Riley in the wheelchair. Oh, the one thing I wanted to mention was I like how the whole what's going on with Riley is addressed in a single offhanded line by the other kid, right? Or the other guy. He says, "Oh, by now, like he should have left. The spirit should have left your brother, or it can take longer for the weaker.
They get
people.
weaker. Yeah,
they get
longer
weaker,
they're
right?
in, the weaker they get.
Right. And so you know that Mia is operating under bad information at that.
Well,
time,
it's awesome
right?
too because Jade says, "Oh, he's kind of woken up and he's acting like himself."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like, "Oh no, don't do it." But my take is that she was never interacting with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like I was going to ask, like, do we think that she was actually interacting? Because
it was
mom,
always
right?
feeding her misinformation, basically.
Yeah,
to,
I feel like
manipulate her. So
there was a malignant force that knew how to manipulate her, and so was doing that.
The only thing that made me that was my interpretation too, Jeff.
Yeah.
The only thing that made me question that was at the very end, we see Mia becomes the hand, and so we do sense that like there is a one-to-one connection sometimes between the people that are on the other side of the hand, right. And the people that connect to them. But I think you're probably right
that
because,
it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you're probably right because she was giving her fake. Mia's mom was giving her fake news, so it's like.
And I think they said something about the spirits, like knowing. Fake news. The spirits know what's in your mind too, like they know your memory.
Yeah, that's what there was a lot of discussion of that in the movie of like, well, when they're inside you, do they know? And like every time something would go inside them, it'd be like, he likes you, he doesn't like you. It's like they were reading the thoughts of their vessel,
Right.
So I feel like, and because we kept seeing dead people that weren't relations, I felt like there was other dead things that were mad and were using the knowledge that they had of her to manipulate her. That was my understanding.
Yeah, that's fair. But I gotta say, guys, one of the other things I really like about this movie is just kind of creating this mythos. I talked about the world building, but creating this mythos of like there is this dead world and like kind of how that works, how that feels, how that looks.
So good.
Honestly, it reminded me of movies I saw when I was a kid that dealt with this kind of thing, like Ghost. The Patrick Swayze movie Ghost.
That's a good movie.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, and there's this whole other nether world and how that works. And like, I was obsessed with those movies when I was a kid. And this brought me back to that. It brought me back to
dreams may come.
Yeah. What is that world like? And how does it all work? And the final sequence of this movie, when she goes and she takes the hand and then you see this whole group of people and you see it from the other side is amazing. Right?
Baller ending.
Beautiful.
Just baller ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the final shot where she's talking with those guys at the end, I was like, "Is that Timothée Chalamet?" I don't know if you guys had that reaction,
no.
but one of the guys
that would have been a pretty.
One of the guys looked a little bit like Wonka to me.
Yeah.
But anyway,
a little bit like Wonka, but they're speaking. Was it Greece or Greece?
Yeah. So Italian, Greek. Yeah.
It's definitely somewhere else. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. How did that happen? I'm glad they have a sequel to kind of explore this idea further, and I hope we see the further adventures of Mia the Spirit. Yeah.
It's just such an amazing ending because it also makes everything else in the movie kind of lock into place. Like, oh, why did we see a bloated, drowning dead woman? It's like, oh, we saw someone at the middle of their ghost life cycle,
right?
And Mia is just like at the beginning of her ghost life cycle, and that's why she looks all bruised and battered up and stuff. But yeah, just an incredible ending. So, and any other I'll just say also shout out to Joe Bird as Riley. Like all the Riley stuff I thought was the creepiest.
So good. Him hitting his head on the back
hitting
of
his head against the wall is just like really upsetting.
Horrifying.
Right? Yeah. So just really great way of creating horror at every turn.
I do think they really bash that character like a lot because I do feel like, man, even that first sequence, I don't know if you're recovering from that concussion. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's really brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's something about this, what I was looking forward to in the sequel, but I can't remember what it is.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, there has been a sequel, and I'm curious, like, if we want to see any, actors come back from this. You guys had brought up the idea that maybe we'll see Mia communicating from the other side. I personally, I think Mia was incredible in this movie. I personally think it would be very strong to just have a whole different set of characters, have a whole different other adventure.
Those Greek dudes.
Like, or it could be anywhere.
It's sort of like got an It Follows vibe too. Like it's the next, the next cycle of the people dealing with this thing.
But I do feel you gotta come back to it. It's like the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Like
I think it would be like a whole new adventure, and then like one of the characters, like in this movie, you have the brother character explain what happens, and then in the next movie, one of the characters from this movie will explain how the hand works in Talk to Me. I think, right? So I think that works.
Perfect title. I think A24 also showed an image, and it's just like the hand curled to two. This perfect for a horror franchise already.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, it's a great movie. People should go check it out. It's doing pretty well at the box office. It had a budget of $4.5 million.
Wild.
What they were able to accomplish is really tremendous.
It'll be on VOD soon, so yeah,
but
for sure.
Go see. I would say go. No, don't wait for the VOD. Go see it in the theater if you feel comfortable doing so. It's a great horror film. It's great to be experiencing with a crowd.
Definitely, my crowd was very responsive to this movie, and that was fun too.
So, at the end of the day, it's really impressive that the Philippous made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.